في أقصى الغرب الأوروبي يلتقي البحر بالسماء في لوحة ساحرة من السكون والحركة. تقع المملكة المتحدة، تلك الجزيرة التي تجمع بين عبق التاريخ ورونق الحاضر. بريطانيا وطن لا يمكن نسيانه، إذ تحمل بين ثناياها قصص ملوك وأبطال وأساطير وأحداث غيرت مجرى العالم، من شوارع لندن المزدحمة بالناس إلى حدائق أكسفورد الهادئة. تنطق كل زاوية فيها برائحة التاريخ وروح الحداثة. وعلى ضفاف نهر التايمز لا تزال آثار الماضي تلتقي مع إشراقة المستقبل في تناغم تام، وتبقى بريطانيا وتظل رمزاً للثقافة والفنون والتعليم والتقدم الذي لا يضاهى. واليوم نلتقي في هذا اللقاء مع سعادة سفيرة المملكة المتحدة لدى دولة الكويت. أهلا وسهلا بك سعادة السفيرة.
مشاهدينا حياكم الله في حلقة جديدة من برنامجكم مع السفير. معي ومعكم الليلة سعادة سفيرة المملكة المتحدة لدى الكويت بليندا لويس. Your Excellency, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Can you tell us when did you present your credentials and what are the most outstanding memories about that day?
Oh, so that means thinking back almost 4 years ago. So I presented my credentials to the former Emir, His Highness Sheikh Nawaf, in May 2021. So it felt like a different world then. We were still in lockdown, recovering from COVID. So we were all in masks and things. So everyone looked very different in Bayan Palace when I went in to present. And it was a very memorable occasion because this is the first ambassadorial post that I've held. I've been a head of mission, but not the ambassador. So yes, we had a rehearsal, and then I just hoped that I would stand in the right place and say the right things. And I had a very interesting conversation with His Highness about the bilateral relationship and about Her late Majesty the Queen, the late Queen Elizabeth II. Yes. So it was a very memorable day.
Yeah. Can you share with us your impression of Kuwait and your experience as the British ambassador here?
Ooh, well, I mean, I've got to do so many different things during my time here. So it's a very busy job because our relationships are very strong, but there's also a lot of activity in lots of different sectors. So I do a lot of trade work, I do a lot of work on the cultural front, including on education. Our British Council here is very strong. We also have lots of frequent ministerial visits. We also have royal visits. So I'm often at the airport receiving people or flying back to the UK to accompany Kuwaiti visitors. So there's a lot of back and forth travel and lots of variety. So no 2 days are ever the same. I don't really have a set routine to my weeks, which is good, I think. It changes everything up and it means that everything always feels fresh and different.
Yes, definitely. Your Excellency, as a British woman who represents her country in the diplomatic corps, how can you find the role of the Kuwaiti woman in the society?
So I work with a lot of Kuwaiti women. I work with a lot of Kuwaiti men. I just want to work with people who are keen to get things done, to deliver, people who have ideas, people who have energy. I think women are very visible in Kuwaiti society, whether it's walking through boardrooms in different private sector companies, if it's going in and out of the ministries, if it's in and out of universities or schools. Increasingly in oil and gas, I'm seeing women in more senior positions as well. So I often don't think about it, to be honest, when I'm sitting having a conversation with a woman who holds a position of responsibility. I don't stop and think, oh, this is different, I'm talking to a woman, because I'm quite used to it here. It's not really something that strikes me, to be honest, because women are all around, as they absolutely should be. I'm a firm believer in having the right person appointed to the job, regardless of whether they're a man or a woman. And I see that around Kuwait.
Totally agree. What are the most important efforts exerted by the embassy to encourage and reinforce cultural exchange?
So we work very closely with the British Council, which leads on a lot of our cultural endeavours on behalf of the United Kingdom. We're very strong in the education sector. So partly in schools, there are a lot of well-established British schools of the Middle East in Kuwait. And increasingly, I'm seeing more collaboration at university level as well. So some of the leading British institutions are keen to work with Kuwaiti institutions so that people perhaps don't have to travel to the UK to benefit from certain UK awarded degrees. Vocational training is also very important in the UK, and I think because things like our city and guilds qualifications or a lot of our professional accreditations are respected and recognised around the world, these are things that people are willing to pay for, to work hard towards, because they have real integrity and they know that the assessments and the examinations are done in absolutely the right way. So whether it's sort of primary age or secondary schooling, or if it's about continuous professional education or university level study, we're very, very strong in that area. But in other parts of culture as well, we work very closely with the National Council for Culture, Arts and Letters. We had a recent visit just last year from the Keeper of the Middle East collection from the British Museum, and he visited a number of museums in Kuwait to look at the curation and display of exhibits to try and encourage more people to come and use some of the fantastic resources here in Kuwait. And people might have seen the wonderful mural that we produced down at Kuwait's Gold Souk, just around the back of Mubarakia. And that was a collaborative effort between a young Kuwaiti artist and a young British artist. So wherever you look, we're active right across the cultural sector.
Wow, impressive. What about Kuwait's humanitarian role in both natural disasters or man-made ones?
I think Kuwait is recognised across the world as being a leading humanitarian donor. Kuwait has proved itself time and time again to be incredibly generous. Where people have been in need, whether that's due to earthquakes or civil war or different kinds of conflict or weather-related disasters. I'm proud to say that the UK is working increasingly closely with Kuwait on humanitarian projects. For example, just last year we announced 2 humanitarian projects working with the Kuwait Fund, delivered through UNICEF. One is delivered in Gaza and the other is in Yemen. And I hope that we'll be able to find more areas of joint interest like that.
Yes, yes. Your Excellency, we all know that the relationship between the UK and Kuwait is collaborative, marked by strong diplomatic, economic and cultural ties. How do you evaluate the bilateral relations between the two countries, its past, present and the future aspects?
So it's just really, really strong, and it always has been. I think when you think about when we first formalised our diplomatic relations back in 1899, and then in 1904 we had the first resident political agent who lived at what is now Dixon House Cultural Museum. Yeah. And then of course we were so busy. We needed to build a bigger premises, so we built the current embassy and residence where we are now for this interview. So it's grown and grown. And then in 1961, we recognised very willingly Kuwait's wish to be a sovereign independent state. And we've always continued to work together to support each other. And now we're looking forward to the different challenges and opportunities, whether that's things presented by new technology, new R&D opportunities. So I can see our diplomatic relations just continuing to strengthen even further.
Yes. Speaking about culture, Your Excellency, are there any cultural similarities between the two people that you've noticed?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, in some ways, people are people, whether they're Kuwaitis or whether they're Brits. I think we both have a love for the sea. Personally, I'm from Newcastle, so I'm used to going to the seaside.
Geordie, yes.
Yes. But you can see whenever there's a holiday or whether there's nice weather at the weekend, people like to go to the seaside, have picnics, camp out, just enjoy themselves there. We both have a great love of food. Yeah. So we're always on the lookout for new restaurants, whether that's new things opening up in London or the rest of the UK. Yeah. I've been enjoying sampling different cuisine here in Kuwait. So I think it's, people just like gathering and getting together, spending time with family and friends. I think we're both quite sociable nations, even though British people are known for being quite reserved. Maybe that's one of the areas that we differ, where Kuwaitis are more open and more instantly hospitable, and maybe British people are a little bit quieter when they first get to know people.
Exactly. So there is an area of common, as they can tell.
Yes, I think so.
Yes. مشاهدينا، فاصل ونرجع نكمل حوارنا مع سفيرة المملكة المتحدة لدى البلاد. مشاهدينا، رجعنا لكم من بعد الفاصل ونستكمل حوارنا مع سعادة السفيرة بليندا لويس. Your Excellency, are you preparing some new agreements to be signed in the future, and in which fields?
Well, I don't think I can say too much about things that we haven't signed yet, but what I can share is that we're very busy drawing up different agreements in a number of different sectors. So some of these are commercial sectors, and others are more sort of cultural sectors. But I think whatever we do with Kuwait, we're very careful to make sure that it's mutually beneficial. We're used to working in collaboration and partnership. And all of the things that we're looking at now, there are benefits to the UK and also benefits to the state of Kuwait. So I'm sure a number of things will be announced quite soon.
Yes. What about the volume of the bilateral trade in both ways?
So our bilateral trade footprint is increasing quite steadily. It's currently, over the last 12 months, it's about 6.2 billion, which represents more than a 20% increase on the previous 4 quarters. So that's a good thing. There are over 3,000 British companies who are currently exporting goods to the state of Kuwait. I'd obviously like to see that grow even further. And I think when the free trade agreement between the GCC and the United Kingdom is signed, I think that will make it a lot easier for us to work together and to trade in far more sectors.
Yes. Can you tell us about the Kuwaiti investment in the UK and the most outstanding efforts to attract more investments?
So Kuwaiti investment in the UK economy is very, very important to us. The UK benefits hugely from the work of the KIA and also a number of other private and government investments that come in from Kuwait. The KIA seems to be attracted to real estate and infrastructure, as a lot of sovereign wealth funds are, but increasingly we're seeing an interest in opportunities outside of London and the southeast. And this is very good because there are a lot of developments further out of the southeast in different provinces and different English regions. So that's a good thing. We're always on the lookout for some of the really big opportunities that we would like to advertise to Kuwaiti investors. And my trade team based here in the embassy and also the Office for Investment back in the UK are always keen to look for trusted, friendly investors like Kuwait. So they're busy every day of the week looking for different things that might be of interest to Kuwait.
Yes. How do you see the Kuwaiti Vision 2035? To what extent are the British companies interested in its huge project?
So there are a lot of British companies, some very sizable British companies who are already working in the Kuwaiti market, who are interested in some of the big upcoming tenders. Sometimes people might not hear so much about British companies winning lots of bids because we don't always go for the big overall prime contract. There are a lot of British companies that get work as subcontractors on some of the big projects. For example, there are a number of British companies involved in the airport expansion project. So we don't always hit the news, but it doesn't mean that we're not here. There are lots of companies who are keen to get a foothold in the Kuwaiti market, and this is what my trade team in the embassy is very busy doing, advertising these opportunities and then helping and supporting British companies to come into the Kuwaiti market.
Yes. On the education sector, tell us about the importance of the scientific and academic cooperation.
So it's incredibly important, and again, it's something that both of our countries benefit from hugely. We're used to working together with Kuwaiti institutions on different R&D projects, and sometimes it's just about explaining the way that we go about something. It may not be suitable precisely for Kuwait, but there are things that we can explore together, and then Kuwaiti professors and educational leaders can decide what it is that they want to take and apply to their own context here. But it's all the way through, right the way from early years provision, children with special educational needs. There are a number of kindergartens here as well that support children who need a bit more support and help to realise their full potential, all the way through schooling and also into the university sector. And of course, we also look at adult education as well, and making sure that people who are willing to continue to invest in themselves and invest in their professional education can get those sorts of accreditations and rewards.
Yes. Do you have the number of the Kuwaiti students who study in the UK?
So I was told recently that we've now gone just over 10,000. It's easy enough for us to be able to assess the number of students who benefit from the international scholarships. But of course, some students are privately funded, so it's harder for us to estimate those numbers.
Yes.
But we can see again steady numbers, large numbers of Kuwaiti students who want to continue their educational journey in the UK. And we have some of the finest universities in the world, some of the top ranked universities in the world. So I'm very glad to see Kuwaiti parents and young Kuwaiti people deciding to continue their education in the UK.
Yes, definitely. Your Excellency, as we all know, that there is a long love story between the Kuwaitis and the capital, London. Can you tell us more about it?
So I do find it interesting that at certain points in the year when I am in Kuwait,
Yes.
and I try to set up meetings with people who I want to talk to and discuss certain things with, I find that they're in the UK. A lot of them are in London or the Lake District, or sometimes around Milton Keynes. So sometimes I find that people spend more time in the UK than I do.
Yeah.
And I think, the UK, although we're quite a small country, we have so much to offer Kuwaiti visitors.
Yes.
We've got wonderful cultural infrastructure. We've got world-class museums. We have marvellous theatre. We have wonderful art galleries. It's a pleasure just to walk along our different riversides. We have fantastic food. I know, decades ago, people used to joke about how bad British food was, but we've taken it really seriously. We have a lot of Michelin-starred restaurants, lots of new pop-up venues as well. Our parks are a huge attraction. And now with the electronic travel authorisation, it's so much easier than ever before for Kuwaiti visitors to decide, I'll hop on a plane. You don't need to plan very far in advance, and off you go and have a marvellous holiday. So I think it is a love affair, as you say, because the UK just has so much to offer.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes, Your Excellency, we think that Kuwaitis know better than the people who live there,
Yes, I get a lot of hints and tips about particularly new restaurants, but also, new shows and new exhibitions and things from Kuwaitis who've been and spent time in London more recently than I have.
Yes. What's one hidden gem in the UK that you would recommend to Kuwaiti tourists?
So I would have to say, visit Newcastle upon Tyne. Too many people go to London, of course, go to York, and then they keep going, miss out Newcastle and stop off in Edinburgh. Newcastle is a city that's really rich in history. It's very compact, very walkable. You've got medieval city walls. You've also got the National Park in Northumbria just on the doorstep, and you've got the beautiful coastline too. I can't think of a better way to spend maybe a Saturday afternoon than walking along Tynemouth Beach, eating some fish and chips and enjoying, I would like to say the fantastic British weather, but probably some cold drizzle, but it's nice and refreshing.
Yeah, definitely.
So everyone, please go and visit Newcastle.
We will, definitely. Your Excellency, what is the most important Kuwaiti tradition you can describe as unique?
The first thing that comes to mind, and I don't know if I'll pronounce this correctly, but it's the kifla ceremony, when the boats come back from the pearl diving.
Yeah.
And I've been to one of these ceremonies, and we waited at the beach, and there's singing and there's traditional music, and the boats come ashore, and then people come out of the boats with all of the unopened shells. And then the shells are opened to see how many pearls the different crews have brought back. And as I understand it, people will go out to sea for maybe a couple of weeks at a time, and people train hard to be able to do this, to be able to dive in the traditional way. But it's like going back in time when you hear the drumming and the singing, and some people are in traditional dress. And it makes one think about the excitement and also how high the stakes were, that people had been away for a while, raised money to be able to go off on this sailing expedition. And you might come back with empty shells, or you might come back with a fortune.
Definitely.
But that sense of excitement and anticipation to see how many pearls have come back. And then I guess, that was how much food did your family get to eat for the next however many weeks or months. So there's that real sense of excitement and anticipation. And now, of course, it's done more as I guess more as a kind of a side of cultural preservation, but it still has that sense of excitement to it. It was beautiful to watch.
Wow, it's authentic too, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. مشاهدينا فاصل ونرجع نكمل حوارنا. Your Excellency, from your own point of view, what makes the holy month of Ramadan special here?
It's incredibly sociable. So I end up visiting lots and lots of douaniers. We always have a staff iftar. Sometimes I'm invited to other people's iftars. We have lots of khabgas as well. I eat a lot of food and I end up very sleep deprived, as I know a lot of people are during Ramadan. But my children don't realise that I'm working late and then I have to get up early in the morning. But I end up seeing lots of people, maybe people who I haven't seen for a couple of months, and then I end up seeing them a lot almost every evening throughout weeks and weeks. So it's a great time to get together with people and connect with them and just hear how life is going for them, how's business, how's trade. So it always feels like a happy time, but just intensely sociable.
Speaking about iftar, Your Excellency, I'm sure you had the chance to try the Kuwaiti cuisine. What is your favorite dish?
Oh, I just like food. I like, there's a kind of wheat dish, it's almost like a porridge that I sometimes have at Ramadan. And it tastes, sometimes I think it's made with millet and sometimes it's made with a different kind of wheat. Do you know what it looks like? Porridge.
Margouk? Gabot?
I don't know. I've heard
it's
called
orange.
Different things. It's just the best way I can describe it is porridge, but it's often savoury, and I don't know if it's healthy or not, but it sort of tastes like it's healthy. So I'll probably eat too much of that.
Can you describe the colour of it?
It's a sort of beige colour. It doesn't sound very appetising the way I'm explaining it, but it is nice.
Is it a dessert?
No, it's a savoury dish that you would have as part of the main course.
Jarish?
Yes.
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 I get it.
Jarish.
Yeah, it's a very tasty dish, actually. You have a nice taste, by the way. Speaking about arts, Your Excellency, have you ever listened to Kuwaiti music? How did you find it?
Yes, I've listened to quite a lot of Kuwaiti music. So one of the standout concerts that I went to was a Kuwaiti production. It was called Rhythms from Kuwait, and it was put on at Drury Lane in the heart of London's West End. And this was part of our 125 years of partnership that we celebrated during the year of 2024. And it was a big orchestra and there were male and female dancers dancing together on the stage in a very traditional way. And you could feel the power of the drumming and the rhythmic singing as well. And I realised that I was sort of swaying back and forth. And when I looked across the rows of people in this big, beautiful Victorian theatre, I could see that everyone was moving in the same way. But it sort of draws in the listener and it kind of resonates all the way through your body. That was a marvellous display. And then I've seen I've heard lots of music and seen dancing and things at weddings that I've been fortunate enough to be invited to. But yeah, it's very vibrant and almost hypnotic in a way.
Yes. Your Excellency, I'm sure that you had quite many, but can you share a memorable experience you've had during your time in Kuwait?
So yes, I can think of one particularly memorable experience. It's slightly embarrassing for me, but I'll tell you anyway. So it was Ramadan last year. And I was busy going to lots of different douaniers and I get invited to lots of them. And sometimes it's the first time I've been and I haven't been to that particular douanier or house before. So we pulled up outside of the address and I could see the stairs going down to one of the douaniers. I went down and I'd gone to meet someone who I'd been working with who works for the Ministry of Interior. So I went into the douanier. And I thought, oh, this is surprising. It's all ladies, very glamorous, beautifully dressed. They welcomed me in, served me coffee and offered dates and sweets. And we had a few chats. And I thought, where's the colleague that I want to talk to from the MOI? So I gave his name and my pronunciation clearly was not very good. And they were sort of, have more coffee, have more sweets. So this went on for a while. And I thought, well, I really need to find the person I'm supposed to be meeting at this douanier. So I asked again and I got some blank looks. And then I tried again with a slightly different pronunciation. And then all the ladies started to laugh and they said, oh, you're at the wrong house. His douanier is next door. We wondered what you were doing here, Your Excellency. I mean, it's lovely to see you and everything, but it was quite a surprise when you walked into the wrong douanier and I realised that I'd gone next door. But it just made me think, about how welcoming people are in Kuwait. And if you wandered into the wrong person's living room in London, they wouldn't serve you coffee and offer you chocolates. They'd probably ring the police. And it just made me think about how safe and welcoming it is. So we all had a laugh. We had a few selfies. And then I left and went next door and met the person I was actually aiming to meet. So that's always stuck with me as just something about Kuwaiti society.
Yes, definitely, Your Excellency. Can I ask you about William Shakespeare?
Captain Shakespeare, yes, so he is one of my predecessors. He was a political agent here until 1916 when he was killed, I believe, at the Battle of Jahra. And he's buried in Kuwait City, not very far away actually from the embassy. And Mr. Issa Dashti, who specialises in researching the relationship between the UK and Kuwait, he took me there to see the grave. And I remember it very well, partly because it felt like, a real piece of history to see this person who had done my job over 100 years ago, but also because my youngest daughter was sick and I couldn't put her into nursery. So I was standing looking at the grave with this baby on my hip, and she fell asleep on my shoulder and she's very heavy. So she's even heavier now, obviously. So I just remember trying to do my job and being serious and giving interviews and things, carrying this little child around the whole time. But, you can't stop working just because your kid is sick. And again, in Kuwait, nobody minded. Nobody minded the fact that I had my little daughter with me.
Definitely.
It's a very family-friendly culture.
We appreciate mothers.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Your Excellency, what do you like to do here in your free time?
Well, I'm usually very, very busy during the weekends, partly because I have young children. So I know most of the soft play places around Kuwait City very, very well. I'm a big fan of Trampo Extreme, especially the big one in Marouge. And there's that lovely sort of petting zoo, little sort of farm area, which I think is very well done for children, where children can interact with the animals, but also learn about them. So I enjoy going there. I think the aquarium is marvellous. And having the scientific centre right next to it, again, it brings in the educational side, and the Discovery Museum, which is is part of the same building. I think that's super for kids as well, introducing them to early STEM concepts. So we're frequent visitors down at the aquarium. And Al Shahid Park, I think, is such an enormous asset. I'm looking forward to phase 3 opening soon. And then for exercise as well, there's the lovely development down on the Corniche, where there's a cycle path that's been put in very recently, and also a sort of jogging track. And it's beautifully landscaped. There are lots of benches. So when I get tired, I can stop and sit down, which seems to be pretty much every bench. But my kids like to go up and down there on their bikes, and it feels very safe. And everyone respects the rules about which lane they're supposed to be in. And you're right next to the sea. So you've got the gorgeous views of the bay, the lovely architecture. And it's nice if you go just before dusk, and then you can see the sun starting to set. And then we always go for frozen yogurt to kind of balance out all the exercise that we've done. Yeah. But I think there are lots of nice places to go, especially with young children, and all of the museums as well. I should have mentioned that. And the facilities at the Jack. There's a lot to do here. We're always so busy, we run out of time to be able to fit everything in.
Yes. Your Excellency, as a mother, how do you find raising children environment in Kuwait?
So I do find the summers difficult because I like my kids to be active and to do exercise and run around. And obviously it's a bit harder to do that when it's so hot, but at least there are lots of indoor places to keep them occupied. I'm very, very pleased with the range and choice of British schools here. So I think my children will fit in seamlessly back into a British education system when we move back to the UK. My children are very young. So one of my kids was a 10-month-old baby when I first moved here. So she's learned to walk, to talk. They've both learned to ride their bikes here. They've both started school here. So pretty much all of their childhood memories are formed from being here in Kuwait. So I've kind of, in a way, to be honest, learnt to be a mother in Kuwait more than I have in the UK. So I think it'll feel like a new chapter for all of us when we do move back to London. But I've enjoyed it. It's been fun here.
I'm sure they will be proud of you.
I hope so. They don't tell me that very often. They usually tell me what a terrible mother I am and why don't I give them more candy.
Maybe you have to ask their father first. Maybe the one who's responsible.
Yes, my husband does a lot of hands-on childcare. I couldn't do this job without him and his support. He's marvellous.
God bless you and bless all your family.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you for being with us today on this insightful conversation. We've learned so much about the strong bonds between the UK and Kuwait. مشاهدينا، وصلنا معاكم لنهاية حلقة هذا اليوم من برنامجكم مع السفير. دمتم في أمان الله ورعايته.